In Spain, over recent years, some municipalities have adopted the use of a flashing amber filtering sequence at signal-controlled pedestrian crossings. The design logic of the filtering sequence was to improve traffic flows and reduce congestion, and whilst there is a theoretical attraction to this, the unintended consequence is acute confusion and danger. In reality, what happens is that many drivers, on seeing the red light switch to flashing amber, either do not stop to check the crossing is clear or immediately move off at speed from the stop line, while simultaneously pedestrians are still on the apron, correctly following the green man instruction. These risks are even greater where the approach to the crossing has more than one lane. The Safer Roads Foundation and the European Transport Safety Council are profoundly concerned that the use of the flashing amber filtering sequence is putting the lives of pedestrians at overt risk. This program will show multiple examples of the dangerous confusion which occurs at such crossings and the need for urgent action. Historically, a flashing amber was used to warn drivers turning right that they needed to proceed with caution, as they could encounter pedestrians crossing the road. The danger of flashing amber traffic signals at pedestrian crossings not located at junctions can be seen here on Avenida de Europa in Benidorm, immediately south of roundabout Avenida de la Comunidad Valenciana. The pedestrian green man comes on with a 32-second countdown. After only 5 seconds, the flashing amber filtering sequence for drivers begins and lasts for the remaining 27 seconds. Throughout this period, pedestrians continue to receive the green man instruction confirming that it's safe to cross, but receive no indication that vehicles can travel through the crossing at speed, a situation that repeatedly occurs. The danger is particularly acute where there is a high-sided vehicle in one of the lanes, during which time there is no intervisibility between drivers and pedestrians. An example of this common scenario can be seen at this multi-lane approach crossing in front of the Cortefiel department store in Burgos on Avenida del Cid Campeador. An elderly woman was walking from the central median, but was hidden by the large white van in the left-hand lane, and therefore completely unsighted to the driver of the black Mazda in the right-hand lane, who had to brake abruptly to avoid striking her at speed, with potentially catastrophic consequences. And in this instance, if a child had been crossing the road, stepping out from in front of the BMW, the driver of the Seat would have struck the infant with a devastating outcome. What is disturbing is that pedestrians using a signal-controlled crossing instinctively proceed onto the carriageway when they see the green man, and, understandably, do not, as a norm, look for oncoming traffic. The situation is acutely dangerous, particularly at night time. If this young woman had crossed the road just moments earlier, the driver of the silver vehicle, who was proceeding on the flashing amber at the same time as the green man indicator was illuminated, could have so easily collided with the pedestrian. The pedestrian here steps out following the green man instruction indicating it's safe to cross, at the same time as vehicles from his left receive the flashing amber, and confusion exists for all parties. Conversely, at the preceding and following crossings on Avenida del Cid Campeador, the pedestrian countdown indicator is identical, but there is no flashing amber sequence for drivers. The result is that at these crossings, and at the overwhelming majority across Spain, confusion is avoided as the driver does not have the option of proceeding at the same time as pedestrians receive a green man. Drivers, when receiving the flashing amber, tend to look directly ahead. Where it's a divided crossing, pedestrians reaching the central median, receiving a green man, understandably presume it's safe to cross without stopping, creating an acutely dangerous scenario. Parents will believe it's safe for older children to use a crossing if the child understands the concept that they should only do so when the green man is illuminated. Children would have no realization that vehicles can actually travel through the crossing when a green man is displayed. With a divided crossing, the hazards are even more extreme, as children will not stop on the central median to check for oncoming traffic before continuing. The authorities in Burgos took the decision to remove the confusing flashing amber filtering sequence at this crossing on Avenida del Cid Campeador, restoring it to a conventional format, where red means stop and green means go to both pedestrians and drivers. The problem of the confusing flashing amber filtering sequence for drivers was first encountered by the Safer Roads Foundation in the United Kingdom, at crossings which were called pelicans, and they were inherently dangerous for the very same reasons as we now see in Spain. With the overwhelming evidence that lives were being put at risk at crossings with a multi-lane approach due to extreme driver-pedestrian confusion, the UK government's Department for Transport changed its policy so that these designs are no longer permissible for new sites or modernisations. In the UK, the issue has been addressed simply by removing the flashing amber light for drivers. A further example of the dangerous conditions created by the flashing amber filtering sequence can be seen, again in Burgos, on Avenida Cantabria, immediately north of Glorieta Jorge Luis Borges roundabout. In this sequence, watch the dark blue BMW hatchback at the rear, where the driver sees that there is no queuing traffic in the far right-hand lane, and on the flashing amber, accelerates straight through the crossing at speed, directly in the path of a pedestrian. Due to driver behaviours in reacting to the flashing amber, this man, correctly using the crossing on a green man, could so easily have been killed by the driver of the BMW. In this sequence, the crossing is being used correctly by pedestrians, but note the behaviour of the driver in the white SUV who comes off the roundabout at speed and would not have had visibility of any crossing pedestrians because of the stationary vehicle in the centre lane. Imagine the consequences of this mother and daughter having correctly used the crossing, yet, in this instance, just moments earlier, the driver of the white SUV would not have seen them. What is disturbing is that cyclists, and particularly riders of electric scooters, the numbers of which have increased dramatically, can be traversing the crossing at 15 kph or more and would have absolutely no opportunity to avoid a collision with a vehicle going through the crossing. After SRF's and ETSC's representations and filmed evidence of the repeated confusion, the Burgos authorities have reverted to the conventional format of sequencing by removing the flashing amber filtering sequence on all 4 exits from the Glorieta Jorge Luis Borges roundabout. What makes the situation so dangerous in Spain is that the overwhelming majority of signal-controlled pedestrian crossings operate that when the green man is illuminated, traffic is always held on a red. The format of a flashing amber filtering sequence has only been introduced at a limited number of sites, leading to widespread misunderstanding by drivers of what the sequence actually means in practice. Returning to the crossing of concern on Avenida de Europa in Benidorm, drivers are repeatedly travelling through at speed on the flashing amber and not conceding priority to crossing pedestrians who are receiving a green man indicating it's safe for them to cross, a situation that could so easily lead to a collision involving loss of life. Here, 2 pedestrians are walking out into the road correctly on a green man instruction. But with the large lorry stationary at the stop line, what would have happened if there had been a vehicle approaching in the lane nearest to the camera? On seeing the flashing amber, a driver of an approaching vehicle would not have been able to see the 2 pedestrians and could so easily have continued through the crossing at speed without stopping. The danger at Avenida de Europa is compounded because there is also a dedicated cycling facility in the central median, which commences and terminates at this crossing. This combination of the cycleway and the flashing amber filtering sequence for southbound traffic creates acutely dangerous conditions, as cyclists and scooter riders can be traversing the crossing at speed and would have absolutely no opportunity to avoid a vehicle also travelling at speed and not conceding priority. This incident graphically demonstrates why the flashing amber filtering sequence is so dangerous. To look at that again, if this cyclist hadn't turned left into the bike lane and continued across the crossing, which would have been his right and a common thing to do, then he would have been struck at speed by the approaching lorry, the consequence of which would have been fatal. The Safer Roads Foundation and ETSC commissioned GEA 21, a renowned Spanish firm of independent consulting engineers, to produce a report on the crossing on Avenida de Europa, which completely concurred with the concerns being raised, stating that Benidorm's road safety plan identifies Avenida de Europa as one of the city roads with the highest number of accidents, with 26 accidents in 2016 and 35 in 2017, accounting for 11 and 23 victims respectively. With the current conditions of drivers receiving a flashing amber filtering signal at the same time as pedestrians receive the green man instruction to cross, as the evidence graphically illustrates, lives at this crossing on Avenida de Europa are being put at overt and ongoing risk. Due to SRF's and ETSC's representations, the authorities in Burgos have now removed the confusing and dangerous flashing amber filtering sequence at the two locations shown in this program, thereby addressing the compromised and dangerous conditions. Any concerns relating to congestion were secondary to ensuring the safety of pedestrians. The Benidorm authorities could equally take unilateral action. GEA 21 states in their report that the filmed evidence of drivers' behaviour indicates an ongoing risk of a serious incident, particularly in a context of changing mobility patterns with an increased presence of bicycles and motorised scooters. The report goes on to say, urgent action is needed to reduce the danger and risk of an accident occurring on the pedestrian crossing by providing a traffic light regulation that prohibits the use of the flashing amber phase for drivers. As can be seen from this program, it's obvious that the rules applying to the flashing amber filtering sequence are widely misunderstood by both drivers and pedestrians. Furthermore, many highway authorities have chosen not to use the flashing amber for obvious reasons, with the result that there is now a difference of approach across Spain, which only compounds the danger.
As far as we are aware, Spain is now the only country in the world which uses the flashing amber for filtering in this way. And considering that signal-controlled crossings should be safe, it is an intolerable situation. In relation to removing the feature, the European Transport Safety Council and the Safer Roads Foundation are working closely with the Spanish authorities to address the obvious dangers highlighted in this program.
With the ongoing confusion created by the flashing amber filtering signals for drivers, it's inevitable that a pedestrian, cyclist, or scooter rider correctly following a green man instruction at a crossing with a multi-lane approach hidden by a high-sided vehicle to an approaching driver will be killed. As was the case with the two sites in Burgos, a pragmatic way forward would be for Benidorm's traffic department to carry out a trial at the crossing of concern on Avenida de Europa. It's essential that the Benidorm authorities take action quickly, as users of the crossing can be repeatedly observed correctly following the green man, whilst simultaneously many drivers, on seeing the flashing amber filtering sequence, accelerate through the crossing, creating the ongoing likelihood of loss of life. Every day without action is simply tempting fate.